Gravedigger whispered, "Sir, that coffin is empty. Don't go home. Go to Unit 17 now." The rain had started just as the funeral ended. Gray clouds hung low over the cemetery, and the wind moved slowly through the tall, silent trees. Most of the mourners had already left. Black cars disappeared down the narrow road, leaving only the sound of rain tapping softly against the gravestones. I stood there alone. My father's coffin rested beside the open grave. The polished wood looked almost too perfect, like something from a display room rather than something meant to hold a human life. People had said kind things during the ceremony. "Your father was a great man. He built an incredible company. You must be proud." But standing there, watching the workers prepare to lower the coffin, I didn't feel proud. I felt confused. Because 3 weeks ago, my father had called me in the middle of the night. And the last thing he said before hanging up was, "Daniel, if anything happens to me, don't trust anyone." At the time I thought he was sick. Or maybe just scared. Now I wasn't so sure. The cemetery workers began to move around the grave, tying thick ropes to the coffin handles. One of them caught my attention. He was older than the others, with a rough gray beard and tired eyes. Dirt covered his gloves, and rain had soaked through his coat. He kept glancing at me. Finally he walked over slowly. "Sir," he said quietly. His voice was low. "Careful." "Yes," I answered. He looked around first, making sure no one else was listening. Then he stepped closer. "So, you're the son?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. For a moment he didn't speak. The rain grew heavier. Then he leaned close and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Sir, that coffin is empty." I stared at him. "What?" His voice dropped even lower. "I opened it earlier, to secure the lining. That's part of the job." He swallowed. "There's nobody inside." The world seemed to tilt. "That's impossible," I said. "They prepared the body at the hospital." The man shook his head slowly. "I'm telling you what I saw." My heart began pounding. Before I could say anything else, he grabbed my sleeve. "Listen carefully," he whispered. "Don't go home tonight." My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" "Go to the storage facility on Ridge Street." He looked straight into my eyes. "Unit 17. The wind moved through the cemetery again. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Why?" The gravedigger hesitated. Then he said something that made the moment even stranger. "Because I think, your father is still alive." I left the cemetery 10 minutes later. My mind was spinning as I drove through the rain. Part of me wanted to ignore the man completely. It sounded insane. But another part of me couldn't forget my father's final phone call. "Don't trust anyone." The road to Ridge Street took about 20 minutes. The storage facility sat on the edge of town, surrounded by chain link fences and flickering lights. Most of the units were dark. The place looked abandoned. I parked near the entrance and stepped out of the car. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle. Unit numbers were painted on each metal door. 11, 12, 13, my footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway between the rows of storage units. My heart pounded harder with every step. Finally I saw it. The door was slightly open. A thin line of yellow light spilled onto the concrete floor. My hands trembled as I pushed the door. It creaked loudly. Inside the small storage unit were boxes, old furniture, and a folding table. And sitting in a chair at the back of the room, was my father. Alive. Thinner than before. Pale. But alive. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Dad. He looked up slowly. When he saw me, relief washed over his face. I was hoping you'd come, he said quietly. I rushed forward. What is going on? They buried an empty coffin. He nodded. I know. Why? He leaned back in the chair, exhausted. Because someone tried to kill me. My chest tightened. What? He gestured toward the boxes. 3 weeks ago I discovered something in the company accounts. My father had built one of the largest construction firms in the state. Billions of dollars moved through it every year. What did you find? I asked. His voice dropped. Someone inside the company has been stealing millions. Who? He hesitated. Then he said 2 words that made my stomach drop. Your uncle. My father's younger brother, Victor. The man who had cried the loudest at the funeral. Victor the first said. My father nodded slowly. When I confronted him, he smiled. A chill ran down my back. He told me accidents happen all the time. Car crashes, heart attacks, medical mistakes. My father looked down at his hands. 2 days later my brakes failed. I stared at him. You're serious? Yes. So the hospital. They helped fake my death, he said. A doctor I trust arranged it? My mind struggled to keep up. You let everyone believe you were dead. I needed time, he said. Time to gather proof. And now? I asked. He looked at me. Now Victor thinks he owns everything. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. My father leaned forward. And that's exactly what I want. 2 weeks later, the entire family gathered for the reading of the will. My uncle Victor sat confidently at the head of the table. Lawyers surrounded him. I stayed quiet. Victor smiled when he saw me. Daniel, he said kindly. I'm sorry about your father. I nodded. The lawyer cleared his throat. According to the will. Victor leaned forward eagerly. The company and all assets will transfer to. The door suddenly opened. Every head turned. And the room fell silent. Because standing in the doorway, was my father. Alive. Victor's face turned completely white. My father stepped into the room slowly. You look surprised, brother, he said calmly. Police officers entered behind him. Victor tried to stand. But it was already over. The investigation had uncovered everything. Hidden accounts. Fraud. Attempted murder. As the officers placed handcuffs on Victor, he stared at my father in disbelief. You should be dead, he whispered. My father simply replied, you forgot one thing. Victor frowned. What? My father glanced at me. My son. And in that moment I finally understood why the gravedigger had whispered to me in the rain. Sometimes the truth isn't buried in the grave. Sometimes, it's waiting in Unit 17.